Evan Hale stood at the edge of the alien settlement with dust on his boots and a thin pack on his back. The twin suns were low in the sky, turning the stone homes golden and red. He had walked for 2 days to reach this place. His water was almost gone. His energy was almost gone too, but he kept his back straight and his hands open so no one would mistake him for a threat. The settlement was quiet in a careful way. Tall alien figures moved slowly between buildings, their eyes watching him from behind glowing masks and ridged faces. They were Krillin, a proud species with hard exoskeleton skin and long, careful memories. Humans were rare here. When humans did come, it was usually with guns, ships, and orders. Evan had none of that. He had been a soldier once, not anymore. The war that brought humans to this sector had ended badly for everyone involved. Contracts were broken. Units were disbanded. Evan's ship had been damaged during evacuation, and he had been left behind with nothing but survival training and a choice: become a criminal or remain human. He chose the second option, even if it was harder. Two Krillin guards stepped forward, their weapons not raised but ready. One spoke through a translator that crackled with age. "Human, state your purpose." Evan swallowed and answered calmly. "My name is Evan Hale. I am looking for work. Any work. I can build, guard, clean, repair. I don't want trouble." The guard studied him for a long moment. Krillin eyes did not blink often, and when they stared, it felt heavy, like judgment itself. Finally, one guard nodded. "You will speak to the lady of the settlement. Follow." Evan let out a quiet breath of relief and followed them through the narrow paths. The buildings were carved from stone and crystal, grown rather than built. Symbols of old families were etched into walls. This place had history, and Evan felt small inside it. They reached a larger structure at the center. Inside, the air was cool. Soft lights floated near the ceiling. At the far end stood a tall Krillin female, her posture proud but tired. Her armor was ceremonial, not meant for battle, and her crest markings were those of leadership. This was Lady Saren. She dismissed the guards with a gesture and looked at Evan directly. Her eyes were sharp, but there was something else there too, something heavy. "You are far from human space," she said. "Why come here?" Evan lowered his head slightly in respect. "Because this place still stands, because I heard you needed people, and because I am done fighting wars that mean nothing." Saren studied him closely. "Humans say many things." "I know," Evan replied. "That's why I'm here to work, not talk." A long silence followed. Then Saren surprised him by turning away and walking toward a wide window. Beyond it, the settlement stretched out, peaceful but fragile. "You ask for work," she said quietly. "Most humans ask for payment, power, or weapons." "I just want a place to belong," Evan said before he could stop himself. Saren turned back slowly. "Then hear my answer carefully, human." She stepped closer. Evan noticed the fine cracks along her armor, old battle damage never fully repaired. "I do not need a worker," she said. Evan felt his heart sink, but he stayed silent. "I need a father." The words hung in the air, heavy and unreal. Evan looked up, confused. I don't understand." Saren moved aside, revealing a small figure standing partially hidden behind her leg, a Krillin child. Smaller than Evan expected, with softer features and wide, uncertain eyes. The child watched Evan with a mix of fear and curiosity. "My mate is dead," Saren said. "Killed during the pirate siege 3 cycles ago. My child lives, but the galaxy is not kind to the weak or the young." Evan felt something tighten in his chest. He had seen children after battles before, too many of them. "There are many Krillin who could," Evan began. "Who would use my child as a symbol," Saren interrupted. "Or a weapon, or a reason for war. I need someone who is strong but not hungry for power. Someone feared enough to make enemies hesitate but human enough to teach mercy." She looked straight at him. "I need a father figure, not by blood, by choice." Evan shook his head slowly. "I'm not royalty, I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who failed to save a lot of people." Saren's voice softened. "Then you understand loss." The child took a small step forward, then stopped. Evan crouched down slowly so he would not seem threatening. "What is your name?" Evan asked gently. The child hesitated, then answered quietly. "Kale." Evan smiled faintly. "That's a strong name." Kale tilted his head. "Are you a monster human?" Evan blinked, then gave a soft laugh. "Some people think so, but no. I promise I won't hurt you." Kale studied him for a long moment, then nodded once, as if making a serious decision. That small nod changed everything. Word spread quickly through the settlement. A human had been invited into the lady's household, not as a guard, not as a prisoner, but as something undefined and dangerous. Elders whispered. Warriors watched closely. Some were angry, some were afraid. Evan was given a small room near Kale's quarters. No chains, no guards. That alone told him how serious Saren was about trust. The first night, Evan did not sleep much. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, listening to the strange sounds of the alien city. He wondered if he had made a mistake staying. He wondered if Saren had. The next morning, Kale found him practicing slow movements, old human breathing exercises meant to calm the mind. "What are you doing?" Kale asked. "Trying not to be afraid," Evan replied honestly. Kale considered this. "Adults are always afraid, they just pretend better." Evan smiled. "You're smarter than most adults I know." Days passed. Evan did not train Kale to fight. Instead, he walked with him through the settlement, teaching him awareness, not aggression. He taught him how to read body language, how to listen before speaking, how to stand tall without threatening others. Some Krillin did not like this. One elder confronted Saren directly. "You allow a predator species to shape the mind of our future leader," the elder warned. Saren answered calmly. "Predators protect their young with their lives. Perhaps that is what we need." The true test came sooner than expected. A small raiding party approached the settlement, scavengers looking for easy prey. In the past, this would have meant bloodshed. Evan stood beside the gates, unarmed, visible. He transmitted a message on open channels, using an old human military frequency pirates still respected. "This settlement is protected," he said simply. "Leave now." The raiders laughed at first, until Evan listed their ship registry past crimes and weaknesses. Information he had gathered quietly. They left without firing a shot. That night Kale asked, "Why didn't you fight them?" Evan answered, "Because winning without fighting means no one has to die." Kale nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson. From the shadows, Saren watched them together. For the first time since her mate's death, her chest felt lighter. The galaxy outside was still cruel. Enemies would come, politics would grow sharp. But inside the settlement, something rare had begun. A human did not arrive asking to rule. He arrived asking to work. And stayed because a child needed a father. The days after the raiders left were quieter on the surface, but tension grew underneath. The settlement still stood, but many eyes followed Evan wherever he went. Some Krillin greeted him with stiff respect. Others turned away. A few looked at him with open dislike. Evan understood. He was an outsider. Worse, he was human. He did not try to change their minds with words. Instead, he focused on Kale. Each morning, Evan and Kale walked the outer paths of the settlement. Evan showed him how to notice small details. A loose stone, a broken light, a place where shadows gathered too deeply. Kale learned quickly. He asked many questions. "Why do you always walk behind me?" Kale asked one morning. "So you learn to lead," Evan replied. "And so you know someone has your back." Kale thought about this, then straightened his posture just a little. Lady Saren watched their routine from a distance. She was grateful but also afraid. The galaxy was watching too. News traveled fast, and not everyone approved of a human so close to the air. Soon, proof of that arrived. A delegation ship landed outside the settlement gates, bearing the mark of the High Coalition, a powerful group that claimed to protect order across many systems. In truth, they controlled futures by controlling children of influence. Saren felt a cold weight in her chest when she saw their banners. "They have come for Kale," she said quietly to Evan. Evan nodded. "I expected them." The coalition envoys entered the council chamber with polite smiles and sharp eyes. Their leader, a tall being with smooth silver skin, spoke first. "We come to ensure the safety of the child heir," the envoy said. "The galaxy is unstable. A lone settlement cannot protect such an important future." Saren's voice was steady. "My people have protected our own for generations." The envoy's gaze shifted to Evan. "Yet you allow a human soldier near him." Evan did not speak. He stood still, hands open, eyes calm. "Humans bring conflict," the envoy continued. "We offer security, education, power." Kale stood beside Saren, small but visible. Evan could feel the child's fear like a quiet signal. Saren answered, "You offer control." The envoy smiled thinly. "Sometimes control is another word for survival," Evan finally spoke, "or another word for ownership." The room went silent. The envoy looked at Evan with interest. "You speak boldly for a hired guardian." "I'm not hired," Evan said, "and I'm not a guardian. I'm here because he asked me to stay." Kale lifted his head. "I did." The envoy's smile faded. "Children do not decide the fate of systems." Evan stepped forward just enough to place himself slightly between Kale and the envoy. "But they live with the results." The coalition left without violence, but their message was clear. They would return with more than words. That night, the council was divided. Some elders argued that resisting the coalition would doom them all. Others believed surrender would be worse. Saren listened, then looked at Evan. "If they come with force, we cannot win." Evan nodded. "Not with ships." "Then what do humans do?" an elder asked sharply. Evan thought for a moment. "We prepare people, and we tell the truth loudly enough that others hear it." He proposed a plan that felt strange to the Krillin. No sudden attack. No grand stand. Instead, Evan suggested gathering evidence of the coalition's past actions, worlds stripped of leadership, children raised as tools, cultures erased quietly. "They fear exposure more than battle," Evan said. "Because battle makes heroes, truth makes witnesses." Some elders doubted him, but Kale spoke before they could decide. "If they take me," Kale said, voice shaking but clear, "they will teach me to rule by fear." "I don't want that." Silence followed. Then Saren placed her hand on her child's shoulder. "Then we stand." The days that followed were tense and busy. Evan trained volunteers not to fight but to delay, to block paths, to protect civilians. He taught them how to stay calm under threat, how to retreat without panic. At night, Evan and Kale talked. "Are you scared?" Kale asked one evening. "Yes," Evan answered honestly. "Then why stay?" Evan looked at him. "Because fear doesn't mean stop. It means be careful about what matters." The coalition returned sooner than expected. Their ships hovered above the settlement, dark against the sky. They broadcast a message demanding Kale's surrender. The settlement did not answer. Instead, Evan activated the data release. Records flowed into open galactic channels. Testimonies, proof, names. The coalition forces moved in. The first clash was not loud, no explosions, just pressure. Drones descended. Troops advanced. Evan stood at the main gate with the volunteers. Kale was hidden deep within the settlement, guarded by those who trusted Evan most. A coalition officer approached. "Step aside, human." Evan did not move. "You don't need him, you need silence, and you're losing it." The officer raised a weapon. Evan raised nothing. A shot rang out. Pain exploded through Evan's side as the blast grazed him, throwing him to the ground. The volunteers held their positions, shocked but steady. The officer froze as messages flooded his display. The data had spread faster than expected. Other systems were reacting, watching. Evan pushed himself up, blood staining his clothes. He looked straight at the officer. "You can still walk away." The officer hesitated, then ordered a retreat. The coalition ships pulled back, not defeated but exposed. Evan collapsed moments later. When he woke, Kale was sitting beside him, eyes red. "You said you wouldn't get hurt," Kale whispered. Evan smiled weakly. "I said I wouldn't hurt you. Big difference." Saren stood nearby, her expression filled with something new, respect mixed with gratitude. "You risked everything," she said. Evan closed his eyes briefly. "That's what parents do." Outside, the settlement slowly returned to life. The threat was not gone forever, but the galaxy had seen the truth. Kale held Evan's hand carefully. "You stayed." Evan squeezed back. "I'm still here." And for the first time, the Krillin settlement felt something it had not felt in a long time. Hope. Evan's recovery was slow, but the wound did not break him. Krillin healers worked carefully, sealing the burned flesh and strengthening his body with treatments meant for their own kind. Evan endured the pain without complaint. When Kale visited, Evan always smiled, even when it hurt. The settlement changed during those days. People who once avoided Evan now nodded to him. Some brought food. Others simply stood guard nearby without being asked. They had seen him stand unarmed before the coalition. They had seen him bleed and refuse to fall. Lady Saren noticed the change most clearly. The council chamber, once divided, now spoke with one voice. The coalition's retreat had not ended the danger, but it had shown something important. The settlement was no longer alone. Messages arrived from distant systems. Some were quiet words of support, others were warnings. The coalition was powerful, and humiliation made them dangerous. They would not forget what happened here. Saren met with Evan once he could stand again. "They will come back," she said. "Maybe not today, maybe not openly." Evan nodded. "That's how control works, it waits." "What would you have us do?" she asked. Evan looked through the window at the settlement below. Kale was in the open square, speaking with other children, his posture confident, his voice calm. "We don't hide," Evan said. "We connect." He suggested something bold, a gathering, not of armies but of witnesses, leaders, traders, teachers, families from nearby systems. A place where the truth could not be erased quietly. Some elders feared this would paint a target on them. Evan answered simply, "The target is already there. This way, they see more than just us." Preparations began immediately. Kale listened carefully as Evan explained the idea to him. "Will they listen to a child?" Kale asked. Evan smiled. "They listen to honesty. Age doesn't matter as much as people think." Kale thought about this. "Then I will speak too." The gathering took place under open skies. Ships of many shapes arrived. Beings of many kinds stepped onto Krillin soil. Some were cautious, some curious. All were watching. Lady Saren spoke first, welcoming them not as subjects but as equals. Then Evan stepped forward, leaning slightly on a support staff. His voice carried clearly. "I am human," he said, "and humans have made many mistakes. We fight fast, we decide faster. Sometimes we forget the cost." He paused, letting the words settle. "But we also learn, and when we do, we protect fiercely." He spoke of the coalition, of what they offered and what they took. He shared evidence again, openly, without anger. Then Kale stepped forward. The crowd grew quiet. Kale's voice was small but steady. "They wanted to take me so I could be safe, but safe without choice is not living. I don't want to rule by fear. I want to learn how to stand without hurting others." He looked at Evan briefly, then back at the crowd. "This human taught me that." Something shifted in the air. Not applause, something deeper. The coalition did not attend the gathering. But their silence was loud. Days passed. The gathering ended peacefully. Ships departed, carrying stories instead of orders. Then the warning came. A coalition fleet was moving, not toward the settlement directly, but toward nearby trade routes. Pressure without open war. A message without words. The council met again. Fear returned, but it did not control them this time. Evan stood slowly. "They want us to choose between safety and conscience." Saren's eyes were firm. "We choose neither. We choose community." She sent a message across open channels. Not a threat, an invitation. "If you stand for choice," it said, "stand together." The response surprised everyone. Ships changed course, patrols formed, trade lanes rerouted. The coalition found themselves watched from all sides, their quiet pressure suddenly very public. They struck anyway, not with ships but with assassins. The attack came at night. Evan sensed it before alarms sounded. Years of survival had trained him to wake when something was wrong. He moved fast, ignoring pain, heading toward Cale's quarters. A shadow moved ahead of him. Evan did not shout. He did not charge. He spoke. "You don't want to do this," he said calmly. The assassin hesitated just long enough. Evan stepped between the threat and the door. The fight was short and brutal. Evan used only what was needed. When guards arrived, the assassin was disarmed and alive. Cale stood behind Evan, shaking. "It's okay," Evan said softly, even as blood dripped from his arm. "It's over." But Evan knew the truth. This was the end of the quiet part. The coalition made their move openly days later, accusing the settlement of destabilizing the region. They demanded Cale's transfer for his own protection. The response came not from Saren, it came from the galaxy. Messages flooded coalition space, trade suspensions, legal challenges, public testimony. Systems that had been silent for years now spoke. The coalition's strength had always depended on isolation. Now they had none. Faced with exposure and resistance, the coalition withdrew their claim, not in apology but in retreat. The threat faded, slowly, unwillingly. When the last coalition ship vanished from scanners, the settlement did not celebrate loudly. Instead, people gathered quietly, understanding what had been protected: a future. Saren stood before her people and spoke words never spoken before. "By the will of the settlement," she said, "and the choice of the heir, I name Evan Hale protector of the child and guardian of the path." It was not a title of power. It was a title of responsibility. Evan knelt, uncomfortable with the attention. Cale stepped forward and placed a hand on Evan's shoulder, copying the human gesture he had learned. "You stayed," Cale said. Evan looked up at him. "You gave me a reason." Life did not become easy after that, but it became honest. Evan taught. Cale learned. Saren ruled with strength and compassion. The settlement became known not as a weak place but as a stubborn one, a place where children were not currency. Years later, when Cale stood taller than Evan, he asked a question. "Why did you really stay?" Cale asked. Evan thought carefully. "Because someone once stayed for me, and it saved my life." Cale nodded, understanding more than his age should allow. The galaxy moved on as it always did. Wars came and went. Empires rose and fell. But in one quiet settlement, a human did not arrive to conquer. He arrived asking for work, and became something far more powerful, a father by choice. The end.